Hi, I'm Carrie Stowe, founder and CEO of Vinco Bar Exam Coaching. In this video, we are going to discuss whether you should take your class for a grade or pass-fail. In the wake of coronavirus, many law schools, and at this point, probably all law schools, have moved to online learning, if not temporarily, for the rest of the semester. And as a result of this change and of just the general stress and tension going on right now in the country, a lot of schools are giving the option for students to take their classes pass fail. And I've been getting a lot of questions about, well, should I do that, right? Before we jump into whether or not you should, let's talk about some of the options that are being made available. Some schools are going to a default pass-fail method where all classes are going to be offered pass-fail. Some schools are going to default pass-fail where you can opt to take your class graded, but if you don't opt to take it graded, it will be a pass-fail class. Some schools are keeping it as a regular graded class with the option to turn it into a pass-fail class. Some schools are saying you can choose to take all of your classes pass-fail, or you can only choose one or two classes to take as pass-fail. So what that means is if you want to take one class pass-fail, you have to take all classes pass-fail, or you can decide on a case-by-case basis. That's another way that some schools are doing it. And then some schools are keeping a regular graded system with pass-fail on an as-needed basis. So spoiler alert, I can't actually tell you whether you should take your class pass-fail or not, but we can discuss some of the factors and considerations that you'll want to look at in making that decision for yourself. So first and most importantly, you need to know what your school's policy is, right? We just discussed generally the different policies that are floating around, but in order to make your decision, you need to know what your school's policy is and what the default setting is going to be. And most importantly, you need to be aware of any deadlines, right? So even if your school has gone optionally to pass-fail, there's probably a deadline for you to let them know if you're going to be taking advantage of that opportunity or not. So make sure you know what your school's policies are and what the deadlines are for opting in or opting out. Next, talk to someone at your school. That's probably going to be your academic support or academic success department. But find out, get some advice from them about what they think you should do. They're going to have more insight into you as a student. You'll be able to share your specific situation with them, and they'll be able to give you good advice. Think about how opting to go from a graded class to a pass-fail class might impact your motivation, okay? Again, everyone's situation is going to be different, but you want to think, am I going to try as hard if the class is pass-fail? Am I going to get as much out of the class if I take the class pass-fail, right? If you're having the luxury to make that decision, you want to make sure that you're making a decision that is helping you and not hurting you, right? And it might not impact your motivation at all, but that's just one thing that came to my mind when I was brainstorming this is, in the past, have I taken my classes as seriously if they're pass-fail? Or from the teaching perspective, do I see that my students take the class as seriously when it's pass-fail versus grading? So assess the impact that this decision might have on your motivation. Next, assess your need, right? The reason that these policies are being put into place is because people have a need. They're now home with their kids, or they're sick, or someone in their family is sick, or they've been upended from where they're living and having to move across the country, right? So these grading systems, it's not just schools are trying to be nice. There's a need to accommodate students who are being impacted for many reasons and in many ways. So I think sometimes as law students, we can just say like, oh, we can handle anything and, no special treatment, whatever. But this isn't the time to do that. Right now is the time to look and say, am I having a hard time keeping up? Would taking this class or taking all of my classes pass fail allow me to get through this semester, to not set back my education, and allow me the time and space to deal with everything else that's going on in my life? Another thing that you want to look at is how taking classes graded or pass-fail might impact your GPA. And that's for a number of reasons, right? Do you need your GPA to be at a certain level to keep your scholarship? Do you need your GPA at a certain level to graduate cum laude or with other kinds of honors? Do you need to keep it at a certain level for a certain program, a degree, a certificate, something like that? Or looking at things from another perspective, do you need to get your GPA to a certain level to get off probation or to remain in school? Now, I've seen a few schools put policies in place where they're saying whatever you decide isn't going to impact your GPA at all, or that it's not going to impact scholarships, or that it's not going to impact probation. But all schools might not put policies in place like that. So make sure you understand how your decisions are going to impact your GPA and any special circumstances you may have where your GPA may be more important for scholarships and things like that. Finally, here's one thing not to do. Don't worry about what your friends are doing and if they're taking their classes pass fail. The reason the schools are giving options is because people are in different situations, right? So, what's right for you might not be right for your friend, and vice versa. Of course, bounce ideas off of each other, weigh the pros and cons together, but don't be afraid to come to a different decision. Okay. So even though I really couldn't answer the question whether you should take any particular class pass fail, I hope you have a framework now for making this decision and that with the wise counsel from your school, you'll be able to make the decision that is right for you.